How we relate to people is often a reflection of how we relate to God. It's always good to take time for an inventory of our relationship with others and with God. Do an attitude check, a heart check, and see how we're doing. In Luke 14, we see that being a dedicated follower of Jesus involves humility, sacrifice, inviting the uninvited, and being last instead of first. Now, on the way to Jerusalem, Jesus stopped at the house of the ruler of the Pharisees for some food. He was sitting with lawyers and other Pharisees, these smart, educated people. What was Jesus doing with these guys anyway? Well, he was invited, not for his company, but because they wanted to watch him carefully. Something was up with this Jesus guy, and they're going to figure it out. And I love how Jesus steps out and challenges their worldview, which I think is a great challenge for us too. So what are some things that we can learn from Jesus in Luke 14? Realistically, I think we can all learn to be a little bit more humble. The people who were with Jesus, they had all this desire to sit at the place of honor. But what does Jesus have to say about this? He says, "For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted." Jesus always goes after the heart, and I believe Jesus is teaching us to serve, to put others before us. People's praise should not be the motivation behind our service. In my opinion, being humble has nothing to do with the recognition. If it happens, so be it. But that's not the motivating factor here. I think if we come at life with a servant's heart and mentality, we truly exemplify what it means to be followers of Jesus. And that's what I want. Again, putting others first, a great challenge in and of itself. Then Jesus goes on to further challenge the host. He says, "The next time you throw a party, don't invite those who can repay you or invite you in return. Instead, invite those who cannot repay." That's the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind. You will be blessed with the ultimate blessing. And at the resurrection of God's people, God will reward you for inviting those who could not repay you. Of course, Jesus is not saying that you can't have a potluck with your friends. He's making the point that there's no generosity in giving to people who can pay you back. The challenge is giving without expecting anything in return. Kingdom generosity and hospitality includes being generous to those who may not be within our regular circle of friends and family. Those who are lonely, sick, poor, refugees, people new to the country who don't know our way of life. Being a follower of Jesus involves being generous to those who can't pay us back. Now in verse 15, when one of the guests says, "Blessed is the one who will eat at the feast in the kingdom of God," Jesus responded with the parable of the great banquet. In this story, a man is hosting a great banquet at his home. When the time has come, the owner sends out the servants to announce the beginning of the meal. The food is ready. Not showing up would be incredibly rude, but this is exactly what happens to three of his guests. They come up with poor excuses and no longer can attend. Now what? Rather than waste the food, the banquet must go on. So he sends his servants to invite the poor, the crippled, the blind, the lame, anyone that he can find. And the purpose that his house would be full. What does this all mean? I like to think of it in this way, that we are the poor, the lame, the blind, the crippled. And there is a great feast. And guess what? We've been invited. And those who ignore the invitation to the banquet, they miss out. The master respects their choice, and they will not taste of his banquet. We are all invited, but those who reject God, those who reject Jesus and what he has done for us, they won't be at the party. The reality is God absolutely wants to see his house filled. And there is room. And for those of us who follow Jesus, we are his servants, and we have his message to share. He wants us to go out into the world with the gospel of Jesus Christ to proclaim the good news. Let's be a part of his mission, and let's fill the tables at our master's party.